Welcome to another episode of Fight the Burnout. Today we have Jacob Molitor. He is going to talk to us around his experience over the last decade plus of policing, different roles, and how he's kind of helped prevent himself from burning out. So it's going to be a different one. But as usual, I say take one thing away from this episode and just implement that in. Hearing lots of stuff and taking no action, you may as well just not even listen. But just grab one thing. You can always come back and listen again. And this episode is sponsored by Create From Why, one of my businesses where we take people and do retreats. In May 2023, we have a motorcycle retreat that's happening. So if you go to the link in the bio, you will see all the details and information about that. So you can recharge, grow, and ride through the southwest of the U.S. So without further ado, Jacob, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are now?
Well, first off, thank you for having me, Chris, and thank you for everything you're doing for officers and their mental wellness. About me, I'm from the land of 10,000 lakes originally. I looked up to my uncle, who was a Minnesota State Trooper. I wanted to be like him. He was one of those guys that tall stature, mustache, like your typical cop. And I wanted to be like him. He wasn't a man of a lot of words, but when he talked, people listened, and I looked up to him. And so that's the path I took. In Minnesota, it was required to get a 2-year degree to be an officer, but all I wanted to be was a cop. And my other at the time were welder or gym teacher, but law enforcement was definitely the best choice for me. So I went to a 2-year college up there, and I had wrote along over 600 hours with my local police department, and not to get hired after I get graduated with my 2-year degree. And I was only 20 years old when I graduated, so I understood. I was told to go down to with a person that I went to college with to do my bachelor's degree. I didn't want to. I just wanted to be a cop, but I started my bachelor's degree. And before I even graduated with my bachelor's degree, I started applying for jobs. Everybody wanted to be a cop back then. There was over 500 applications in the metro for a lot of these jobs, and they all either had experience or someone with, a degree already. Not a lot to set me apart. I did about everything I could do at college. I did security. I volunteered in the emergency room. I was a reserve police officer. I just wanted to be around it all the time. One way or another, I wanted to be around people. I helped people. Special Olympics, that's probably what I take the most pride in. I would go bowling with them, do all sorts of things. So played flag football and basketball. That was kind of the time of my life, but got a position down in Marshalltown area, Iowa. And then they had a pretty rigorous field training program, and I actually got extended and didn't pass their field training. And then I had literally met my wife before I even started with that department. And we have a beautiful family, a 5-year-old girl, 2-year-old boy. Life is amazing. I took that I guess you could call failure, and I turned that into basically my biggest motivator for my future. My next department, which is about 15 officer department, actually a little less than that, 12. I became my best self, and I wasn't too far away from where they were at. I rose from officer to detective in 3.5 years. And then I was detective for 3 years, and then I became the chief of police. And I did that for 3.5 years, and now I'm joining the same department that I originally started with to kind of make that round. And I'm really excited about that, to basically fill my heart after what was the most terrible thing that had ever happened to me, to being where I live and where I know I can succeed.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And also my grandpa died when I was in the academy, or shortly before that. And he wanted me to advance my education. And the only thing I could do was get my master's degree, and that was in public safety executive leadership. So That's what really helped me become be chosen to be the chief of police at that time. Um, but I'm really excited to start my new journey.
Mm.
And with that, I've also started a website.
Mm.
It's
Yeah, and we'll talk about that here shortly. So everybody, stay tuned. It is definitely a place that you want to go look at and go visit, because it brings a whole bunch of different learnings and knowledge together. So you have one place to look, so you're not having to look everywhere when you're kind of seeking some stuff out. Um, Jacob, so we had a little glitch there. Good old internet when we're on the other sides of the world. So Jacob, so you went through all these different things. You had all this, I look at it as a lot of resilience, and got you to drive and push harder. You had to go to university, had a few failures, and that happened. How did you turn those failures into that motivating driver? What was some of those key things that you feel you did there?
Well, I wanted to prove myself that I belonged. I had times where they told me I was too nice to be a police officer. I didn't know how to take that. I had several people in the Marshtown community that they said that,
Mm.
and I just couldn't. I was trying to wrap my brain around that, and really, what has become important to me over the years of policing is humanizing the badge. It's become a really big thing. I'm really big on community relations, and at every opportunity, sitting down to have a conversation, because any conversation we have, whether it's a suspect or a victim, if we're standing up with them, we're setting the expectation that this conversation isn't going to take long, or we can turn away at any point in time, versus what do we do with our friends and family or anyone? If we sit down, we can talk for hours. Hey, can I get you something to drink? Even something to eat, depending on the circumstance. And just um, I've always had the notion of like giving. Even, it doesn't matter who they are, if they're the suspect or the victim or family friend, that what I get receive so much from giving.
Mhm. Yeah, no,
And
definitely. I and
fulfilling.
I know like most police officers that I've talked to, or I've coached, or I've had interactions with, that's normally the why they started. They want to give to the community, they want to help the community, they want to help people, they want to make that difference. So over your policing career, obviously you promoted pretty quickly. What do you believe was the reason behind that? Was it the education side of stuff? Was it the who you are, the giving side? What do you feel is like the kind of the top thing that you that kind of set you apart from everybody else to do that promotion, get promoted quickly?
Well, I was told it was because of how much I care.
Mm,
Obviously, the education, yeah, it has to be the foundation of it, and understanding leadership and some of the specific tasks are required in that position with budgeting and just overall leadership. I had rebuilt the department from 4 officers that had completely fallen apart, to full staffed in just over a year.
wow.
Um, it was it was pretty amazing. We had a really special team, and I know they'll continue to do well.
So you said caring. Um, I know a lot of cops, they care, but then I've seen it because I've helped them and I've just talked to lots of them. They care so much that actually they end up caring not ever too much, but they just care so much that then it ends up actually backfiring on them. Why do you believe that did it ever actually backfire on you, where you started to go, well, why do I care so much? What's the point of this? Did you ever have that moment?
Um, I think one of the traits of a really caring person is that they can, like, I almost say, as a police officer, it's kind of a balance, because it's like we're naturally not trusting of people, but when you care so much, like, you at times you may be blind to certain things, or like if some people may be in a toxic relationship and they'll not look at all the warning signs or something like that. Um, I think it's just being genuine, alongside being caring, just being yourself and letting people see you beyond the badge. Like, I would always like point out to people when they recognize me out of uniform, like, oh, you see me for who I am. Like, that's great. You know what I mean? Just always like making a point to that. And, of course, that always gets a smile. And um, I was never really afraid to run into anybody. off duty and just being proud. Like, I know there's a lot of officers out there that they'll, if they're in public, they may say that they're not in law enforcement. They'll just kind of avoid the topic at all costs. But I'm proud um, of law enforcement, and I think every opportunity we have, we need to speak our own, narrative. And the reality is the people, they understand law enforcement the most from their actual interactions with law enforcement over TV and everything else. But we have that opportunity.
So when you were doing it, because like you said, there's a lot of cops that kind of, they pull themselves away. They say that they're not police when they're off duty. They also, they have that tendency to kind of, like you said, not trust people.
Mhm.
And all granted, you deal with, as police, we slash I used to slash did uh interact with a lot of people that aren't very nice. How did you make sure that that didn't get underneath your skin? How did you make sure that that didn't um, change you as a person?
First and foremost, I would always know that it wasn't personal, and I
Mm.
would remind myself that during interactions. So, and I mean, I'm sure everybody's seen an officer that will kind of make things worse. And I always never wanted to be that person. I wanted to go there and, at least keep things the same as they were, or if not, make them better.
Yeah.
Um, so like, why are you calling us if you're just gonna make everything, blow everything out of the water, kind of thing. Um, and just listening to the training, and when somebody's hyped up to, be lower and than them and lower them down and do the best you can, and just recognizing that every interaction multiplies. Like, it's not going to be your last time, or then an officer, if it's not you, then an officer will interact with that person. And I don't want to set up that next officer to get hurt and killed because I mistreated somebody. Respect is always the number one thing for me, that I don't care what anybody did to anybody. I'm going to treat them with respect. I'm going to do what I have to do in the moment. Um, but they're human beings, and I don't want to have, these headlines. I don't know what interactions these individuals, the guy that walked into Walmart and shot 6 people or whatever it is, what interactions they had prior to whatever heinous things they did that could have made a difference. So I just, um, that's one of the things that sticks with me.
Oh, I love that. I love that because it's so true. You never know what your little interaction, your smile to somebody else, your holding the door open for somebody can do. There's a story I heard at a conference that I was at. A guy was going to go into a bank. I think it was like 6 different interactions, and I'm going to botch the crap out of this. I know I am, but it was like 6 different interactions. I'm going to brief it up. That he was going to go in and do like a mass shooting or hold up a bank or do something with firearms and do something bad, in the thing of wanting to commit suicide by cop. And uh every time that he went to go do it, and I think he wrote this in like a manifest or in a thing before he ended up actually committing suicide, but it was that it was some sort of interaction. Like one time he went in to go do this thing, and a little old lady held the door open for him and was like, "Have a nice day." And he was like, "Well, I can't do that because of this." And it was that same exact thing, like you said, that little interaction. You never know that difference. So I love that you stayed focused on that. Did you ever have, Jacob? Did you ever have any times where you're just like, "Why do I do this job? Like this is just like there's just so much going on, and there's just so many." The bottom 10% of society that we see as police officers. Did you ever have a time where you're just like, this is just, we're never going to win this fight?
No, I really haven't. I've stayed positive. I tend to look at the bright side of any situation, so much that my wife's yelled at me for it. Is like, can you just be upset? And it's not to say I've never been upset, but when something bad happens, to see it as a challenge or a learning experience to do it better the next time, or to help others around you, has really been the key thing for me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. When you can sit in that, you can actually do it. Why do you feel that you're able to sit in that so easily and be that person that your wife actually yells at because you don't get angry about anything?
I, I mean, it's just who I am,
Mm,
and I I want to help people.
Mm.
And I really, I can't see myself doing anything else. I know, that can be a bad thing at time for officers if they want to get out, but it truly does matter. The people that, you know, that say bad things about the police are often the ones that need us the most and aren't willing to speak up.
Mm.
Um, so we're doing all sorts of things that we'll never hear back. So like we kind of talked about that already, but there's a great YouTube video called Lollipop Moments about that, about all these actions that have taken place that you have done in your life that people have never told you about, how much of a dramatic impact that they've made. And I've just, I guess, assumed that my lollipop moments have multiplied for people, so that I'd make a difference.
Oh, I love that. I love that that's the way that you focus, because I do know there's so many people, including myself, that struggle with staying concise and staying on that pathway. And it's not, I don't know how it is for you, but I know for me it's not always easy. I'm always kind of like have to bring myself back to that center. And then the police had a few big things happen that kind of really threw me off that. And then I had myself around the people that were constantly just reinforcing that negative side, which I found for me didn't help. Uh, I know as police, we see a lot of trauma and we deal with a lot of traumatic things. And I'd love to get your perspective and your thoughts on how to work through that trauma, because we see more than a civilian will ever. We are with people at their worst times. How do you work through all that trauma and that stuff that we see that really the mind shouldn't isn't designed to see as much as we do?
Yeah. I've seen trauma. I sure have. An example of that. It was less than a year ago. We had a female I've known for 10 years. Kind of makes me choke up, but nicest girl, nicest girl ever. Very involved in the community, never in trouble. Um, was near home and was attacked by a pack of wild dogs, um, and mauled to death. Um, it was really horrific. I knew the medical examiner very well. I was in on the medical exam, and she's been doing it for over 20 years and said without a doubt it was the worst scene she's ever seen in her entire life. So I was in there. The medical examiner family was there. She would stop every 15, 20 seconds and hug me, the medical examiner that is, and just basically just can't hold back the tears. Um, we had a peer support meeting and all got together, between medical, um, the fire and EMS. Um, they had the fire department come out and wash out the ground because the blood was, yeah, it was terrible. Um, but yeah, so that's one that definitely stick with me, and that community. But I think the fact that we were able to be there for each other is how I, feel better about that, instead of someone having to go through that alone, to be able to unite over something so tragic, and turn around and we got the National Humane Society involved. It brought a truckload uh, of food and equipment and everything else for the community. It was a great response, all sorts of vaccines and things like that. Um, but yeah, um, to stay positive through it all and just prevention, like you try so much to do with individuals. Um, Same thing with that. Like what's done is done. What,
Mm.
what's everything that we can do to keep this from happening again, and making that the goal and the focus.
What do you think mentally wise prepared you to be able to not just help yourself, but also help others work through like that specific incident?
Well, I mean, with anything else, you have to help yourself before you can help others so much. So I had to reflect on that a little bit first and get some tears out.
Mm.
Um, just be okay with that. Um, yeah, so after that took place, I think just like we always do, what can we do? So one second, one decision at a time. What's the next best thing we can do?
Mm. Who'd you talk to the most about it?
My coworkers and my family.
Mm.
Yeah, and a couple of close friends.
Because I know, the coworkers, I feel like as police, real easy to talk to the coworkers, not so much about the struggles, but about the incident, like, talk it out.
Right,
The talking with
right.
family can be very difficult. And I hear it a lot, oh, I don't want to put them through the trauma. I don't want them to, feel burdened. I don't want them to worry about me. Do you worry about that when you talk with your family about, like, say, an incident like this? I know that they would have known about it and probably known that you went to it in a way, with it being a small community, but I know with other traumatic things that probably have happened through your career, talking with the family, how do you go about doing that, and feeling good about it, I guess?
So I have a wife of 9 years. She's a nurse, so she's okay with blood and all that kind of stuff. She's has worked the shift work as well, but she's a stay-at-home mom now. Whereas the rest of the family, they're none of them are first responders, anything like that. I think I guess vicariously you kind of hurt them through sharing, but at the same time, like I have to get stuff off my chest, and they know that, and that's part of the deal. That's what we're here for. We're here for each other. But that when they have things come up in their life, they share those as well, like that are of course, non-public safety related, but they have issues come up, and we have that expectation of each other that we're going to communicate.
I love that. I love that you just lay it out there, because yeah, there is so many people, even myself, who was like, oh, I don't want her to have to worry as and that, and so, caring about everybody else way more than actually the fact that, hey, I need this so I can actually be there for you, so I can
Right.
actually turn up. So no, I love that. uh Now, obviously, you had that one. You probably had other things. How do you help, obviously being chief, quite young along the way, quite quickly? How do you help make sure, when you were chief, or even going back into the department that you're going into, how do you make sure that the guys that are lower in rank or newer, into the job, are able to follow in your footsteps of not burning out, having the trauma not affect them as much? How do you help make sure that they keep who they are and don't let the badge kind of weigh them down?
Well, I think the key word is trust, and in law enforcement, we seem to always associate that word with physical trust. That we go, hey man, we're gonna go on this scene together. We're gonna keep each other safe. And we got guns, we got equipment, we got cars and all sorts of things to help keep us safe. That are none of those are foolproof. But what bothers us the most is the other types of trust. Do we trust each other with confidential information? If we had to, would we trust this person with our significant other alone? Would we borrow this person money, or trust that they're not going to do anything with our money if they had control of it, kind of thing? Like, is there a true trust there with that individual? And when you have that trust there, you're willing to be vulnerable with each other and to share things that you may not otherwise share.
Mm, yeah, gotcha. So
And
build that
especially with,
trust.
yeah, when on my department, we actually created a peer review system, and that was a lot of what the questions were. We're just assessing the levels of trust that individuals have with each other within the department and trying to improve upon that, because we need more than physical trust with each other.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. That's so true. How do you, obviously, you guys did the peer review stuff. How else do you help make sure that, when you get new people coming along, that there is that trust there, so that everybody does feel like they can be vulnerable and talk about things, like, when they go to horrific jobs, and or if they're having a struggle in their personal life, that they can actually feel like they can talk about it openly.
Well, they need to spend time with each other, whether it's overlapping shifts to an extent or events outside of work with family. Just the more ways that they can be tied to each other to actually get to know each other on a personal level outside of work, the better.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, that helps with retention as well
Mm.
because the individual won't want to leave because their friends are there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Especially when the bosses care, like when they feel like the bosses care and that as well, and they're all trying to do all of it with them. Uh, I'm a huge why guy, and I believe that your why and purpose really drives you within like what you do. And it really, when you are clear on it, you can articulate it, you are less likely to burn out because you know who you are. And it sounds like you know who you are, Jacob, quite well. Obviously, it's been a process, and there will be a lot of work, I can guarantee you, to go into that and continuous work. What would you say your driving why is that's always driven you from your childhood all the way through now?
I think it's just always wanting to feel fulfilled, knowing that we only have one life and that, I mean, I've accomplished having kids. Like, I feel like if something were to happen to me now, like that's one check mark that I have done that, that my bloodline would move on, that I, accomplished what I want to accomplish. But, with any individual, I don't think it's about how much money you make or anything like that. You look back and you say, like, that person would have given the shirt off their back, or, what I mean? They would have been there for you when you needed it most, or um yeah, I guess just giving it your all and just yeah, being part of something bigger than yourself. I think these days, certain individuals are, I guess, can be selfish, or a lot of keyboard warriors out there, um to get in front of each other and to share different ideas and have a true interest in wanting to improve one another.
Mm. Oh, I love that fulfilled side of things, just consistently helping yourself and others be fulfilled. That's that's impactful, very impactful, and you can see it through the conversation we've had today. What do you think? If somebody's struggling with knowing their why, I know a lot of law enforcement I talk to, they struggle with it. They have an idea of it when they first get in, but then they get lost in it. And then when if they decide they want to leave, they really get lost in it because they've tied their purpose to the badge and to the job. What would you say to them on helping to actually really find their why and purpose that's truly for them, not so much about what they do, but truly is for them?
I think one has to go back to the beginning of when they first got into law enforcement and understand what the reason was that they got into it to begin with. And, were they like over the moon excited? Like when I first got that call, I remember jumping up and down as I was so happy. If somebody felt that same way, to, remember that phone call. I remember I kept that voice, like there was an original voicemail that I kept for a lot of years until I finally got a new phone that couldn't have it anymore. It just took a lot of pride in it. Um, so yeah, bring yourself back to that and some of those early memories. And I mean, if that doesn't help, then I mean, for some people, it may mean getting out to live a different life. But at the same time, to make sure you live that one life to the fullest. And if it means law enforcement, that's great. Um, I know more and more people are turning in their badges, and it's really sad. But I think that the more community uproar, the more problems there are in the world, the more we're needed. Maybe not the more we're recognized, um, but deep down, how much we really matter increases.
I love that. It's so true. What do you feel is the number one way to help with because we're seeing around the world, not just in the US, but around the world, the retention of police, as you just said, there's more and more people kind of leaving. What do you feel is the number one way in your eyes and with your experience that we could do or could be done to help retain the officers that we're losing?
I think personalization is huge. Just like getting a personalized mug for you for Christmas. Let's say I sent that one of those to Australia. You would love that,
Mm,
uh, or New Zealand, I mean.
yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
all
no,
good.
I mean, right, yeah. So I think the more we can ingrain the officers in the department and decisions, or even particular items with their names on them. For example, I bought challenge coins. It was extra money to do it, but challenge coins with their own titles and names and everything. With the department on it and everything. Like we're spending all this money on bonuses and everything else to get people in the door. Um, but I know a lot of people complain about where's my retention bonus. Like I go through all this and that, and people want to feel valued. I think that is the number one thing. If we can spend extra money on maybe food or like just like for officers when they're working, or um, I know a lot of officers really appreciate time off more so now than ever, to be able to go to something that they really want to go to. That the flexibility of schedule and I mean, we're never in law enforcement going to have the same perks that remote work, or there's still things that we're competing with that they're not able to do in law enforcement. Um, and one of those very obvious things is attire, like allowing an officer to wear an outer carrier, to put this here or that there instead of wearing class A uniform. I mean, I think that's in the past. I think if a department isn't allowing to make those changes, they don't really realize or understand how important those little things are to their officers. So listen, I think that's the number one thing. Officers want to be heard, and then if reasonable, use their ideas, or at least acknowledge their ideas and implement when they're when the time is right.
No, I love that. Some really good stuff, some stuff that I hadn't thought about as well. Now leading off of that, it's a perfect time to talk about you've started up a thing called Voice of Police, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about that, because I came across, well, we met through LinkedIn, because I came across your Voice of Police, and I was like, what is this going on here? And then you invited me to it, and it's really cool. And I'd love, for instead of me botching it all up and making it horrible, why don't you tell us a little bit about it, and why you've created it?
Yeah, I've taken a lot of pride on it. It's voiceofpolice.com, and it's designed for police and their families, whether they're current, retired, or no longer active in law enforcement. They're able to participate. The spouse or girlfriend can submit an article or story. Feel good stories, inspirational stories of loss, grief, PTSD, mental health, wellness, peer support, just overall police stories, police topic area stories. There's a section on donations. That section on donations, not just for line of duty death, it's any death or hardship. Let's say there's one on there, an officer's house burned down. Having like GoFundMe's and other things on there, other serious injuries, needs that families have. It's something that I hadn't seen before. And I felt like there was a void. We have all these official law enforcement websites that have news stories, from police, but this is kind of a middle ground between a blog and one of those true law enforcement websites that the line officer or the spouse of an officer can get their voice heard. And I feel like law enforcement doesn't get their voice heard very much. So you don't have to be an excellent writer to be on voiceofpolice.com. We just want you to submit a story, and we'll get it out there for you. That's really what it comes down to. There's also some photo gallery on there and some videos, things like that, but the centerpiece is the donation section, as well as the overall stories. And as long as it's an appropriate story, we're going to get it out there.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, quite quickly you're like, Chris, what's you? Let's get the podcast on this. I appreciate that. I appreciate everything that you're doing around the voice of police, because it's so true. It's nice for not just the officers, but spouses and people that know officers to be able to share stories that they've had with them. Again, it's around that, like you said, humanizing things, making it personal. Because when you actually understand who the person is, they actually will be seen more. They'll feel seen more. So I love that.
Yep.
Uh, anything else that you'd like to add about voice of police?
There's a section on podcasts, of course, as well. Your podcast is on there, as well as others that are, we're going to continue to add on there to be a one-stop shop for places to look for podcasts.
No, I love it. I love it. It's so cool. It's a great place. Go check it out. Voiceofpolice.com, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. Now, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, Jacob, and they want to either submit something for the website, or they just want to learn more about you, or just kind of pick your brain on things, how do they go about doing that? What's the easiest way?
By email, jacob@voiceofpolice.com. There's a section on there for article submission. It's just a quick form that just makes sure that the basic things are on there, and upload your document and any associated photos, and we'll put them on the website. And then we'll put them out on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. We've had quite a few submitted already. We're really happy about that.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, there's been some real good ones that have come through. So all those links will be down in the description below as well, so that it's easy for you guys listening and watching to find those. Jacob, the last question I like to always ask is, what would you say your top tip to self-happiness is?
Make time for things that are most important to you. I know it's easy to make excuses, and I think we all do at times, but to do whatever we got to do to make the time for the things that we care most about.
I love that. And I'm just going to piggyback off of that. If somebody doesn't know what does make them happy, what would be your advice for that?
If they don't know what makes them happy, I'd say talk to you.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Be able to find that. Yeah, I think there's a guy for that.
There's a guy for that. Yeah, find what you love.
There's a guy for that, or a book for that, or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. No, I love that. I love that. Nice, simple, to the point. Well, thank you, Jacob, for your time. Thanks for what you're doing with Voice of Police as well. It is definitely needed for our officers. Thanks for all your commitment to law enforcement and everything that you've done, through your career. And also, I just wanted to ask one last thing: is do you have any last words that you'd like to kind of say to everybody?
No, thank you very much for listening, and check out voicepolice.com, and also check out smallrural.org. Amazing organization as well.
Small Rural. Tell us a little bit about that. We didn't go over that.
Yeah, no, we didn't. The Small and Rural Law Enforcement Executives Association is an association that I've been part of the last 2 years. I've been the chair of that. It's no cost to join. Over 6,000 members now. With that, over 90% of law enforcement's in that small, rural, tribal category. We have a seat at the table now. We actually had a meeting recently with Secretary Mayorkas of the Department of Homeland Security, excuse me. Yeah. There's a leadership academy. I'm used to saying that I had the privilege to go to, but and yeah, he said it with his own words that we're going to have a seat at the table. So when there's important discussions that happen about law enforcement, that small and rural agencies will be, at part of those discussions, and it's because of that association that's possible. A lot of the decisions early on, when I was part of the association, some of the early meetings I was on with International Association Chiefs of Police and others, didn't reflect small and rural values and ways of doing things. But thanks to over the time passing here and being involved in more and more, that's starting to shift.
Well, that's awesome. That's real good, because it is. It's the little man always gets looked over, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But a lot of little men make a big area. So, and there's a lot of. I was talking about this the other day with my wife. I was like, if you ever wanted to disappear, the U.S. is a great place to do it. You could disappear off into the back country of U.S. and never get found if you didn't want to.
But we're all members. We're all doing the exact same thing. We're just, the more people that can offer something, the better. I'm very thankful to be part of that.
Yeah, no, the rules, you guys definitely matter out there. Well, thank you, Jacob, very much for your time. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. And remember, this is Fight the Burnout, where we help you prevent burning out by listening to other people's stories. Like today, Jacob told us all about how he prevents himself from burning out, how he has not really experienced it. And these are the tools that he uses. Then also, obviously, the other episodes we have people talk about their experience with burnout and what they do different and what got them there, so you can prevent yourself from getting there. So, just take one thing away, go back and listen. Please like and share to audience, to people that you know, so that we can get the message out there more. And take care of yourself. My motto is always train hard, test easy, because we train the mind and the body so that when we do get tested, when we do have those horrific incidents that we go to, we're more prepared for it. So till next time, thank you all very much for listening. If you do need any assistance, please don't hesitate to email myself or Jacob. If you resonate with him more, my email is chris@knockingdemoncoaching.com, and you can find that link in the description down below. Till next time, train hard, test easy, and stay safe, everyone.